Hello everyone, and welcome to my Warden PvP build guide. In this video I want to combine two Warden builds, which are Stamden and Magden. And I'll start with Stamden. First set I'm using in this build is Wretched Vitality. Warden has the worst sustain in the game, and I'm not sure if it's even arguable at this point, so I personally feel like you need Wretched on basically every Warden build, especially if you don't really build into sustain in other aspects of your setup. Then we have classic sets such as Balorgh and one-piece Trainee. For Mythic I'm using Satan Seducer, because I just recently got Gold Road and I'm having fun using this Mythic on lots of classes now, and also obviously because it's a really strong set. And lastly we have Oakfathers. Damage with it goes through the roof, and Warden is probably the best class for this set. When you have Oakfather, Balorgh, Satan Seducer, Lavramandus, Sharpened Maul, Northern Storm, it's just over. I haven't had so much fun on Warden probably since Plague Break nerf, so yeah, I really recommend this set. It's an absolute gem. I do think Oakfathers and Wretched is the best combo right now, but there is of course some other set options. Rallying Cry, Essence Thief, Clever Alchemist, Olrime, maybe also Hrothgar's and Kin Marcher. For Mythic you can also use Torque, Sea Serpent's Coil, Deathdealer's Feet or Markin. Now to the skills. On the front bar we have Executioner as our Execute, Shulks as our semi-spammable with Major Breach, Dizzy Swing as our main spammable, Bird for damage passives, speed buff and CC immunity, Lotus Blossom for crit buff and healing, and Dawnbreaker as a front bar ultimate, mostly for damage passives. On the back bar we have Polar Wind as our burst heal and heal over time, Winter's Embrace as our armor buff and damage mitigation skill, Vigor for minor resolve, Nage for damage buff, cleanse and sustain, Leeching Vines as another heal over time, and Northern Storm as our main ultimate on this build. Other skills you can use are Corrupting Pollen instead of Leeching Vines if you want to debuff your enemies even more, to get more bonuses from Oakfathers. Really good skill, just a little bit clunkier to use than Leeching Vines, but it gives really good debuffs and group heal. Anymorph of Flies for strong dot, Revealing Flare for damage mitigation, Wolfseal's Contingency with Charm and some other cool effects. I just don't have class mastery yet, that's why I'm not using it. And I guess that's it about the skills. Now let's move to Magden. For the sets we're also using Wretched Vitality and Balorgh. Instead of Mythic though, we're using Asylum Lightning Staff and full monster set. You can use Mythic on this build as well, but for that you'll have to drop either monster set or Asylum Staff. And our last set in this build is Drogarkin. It gives us extra damage to all of our damage sources, but reduces our healing by 10%. So as you can see, with this setup we really build into pressure. We have status effects from Asylum Staff, and all of our damage sticks from Force Pulse, Arctic Blast and Northern Storm getting buffed with Drogarkin, which is a lot of damage. For the skills, I'm using all the same skills as on my Stamden build, but instead of Execute I'm using Arctic Blast, which is another morph of Polar Wind, and since we don't use Polar Wind as our main burst heal, I'm using Healing Soul on my backbar. And of course, I'm using Force Pulse instead of Dizzy Swing, because we're playing with Lightning Staff now. Now I want to compare those builds and say my thoughts about them. Stamden is really a classic brawler build. You have two-hander, you have Dizzy Swing, you have Execute unlike Magden, and that is really noticeable and I really like it about Stamden. You just basically brawl your way to victory. It just feels heavy in a good way, strong, and I'd say it's definitely more tanky because you don't have healing debuff from Drogarkin. Sustain wise, you might have a better sustain as well than Magden, because you use both Magicka and Stamina and not only Magicka. This is for positives. If we talk about negatives, I personally don't really think there is any, but in a way, two-hander playstyle, especially Dizzy Swing, feels clunkier than Force Pulse for sure. And you obviously don't have any range and you need to be in melee distance all the time. Magden, on the other hand, really shines with its damage over time pressure. Like I was saying, Force Pulse, status effects, Arctic Blast and Northern Storm all hit very strong because of Drogarkin. You can be melee and ranged on this build, and you don't need to deal with Dizzy Swings if they feel clunky to you. With Force Pulse and Arctic Blast, you will also be doing more AoE damage than on Stamden. Also, very important part of these builds for me was going back to using Sword and Board on backbar. Honestly, it was a game changer for me, because I was playing Ice Staff for a long time on backbar, but on Warden, Sword and Board really shines and adds an extra flavor and survivability to it. Both of these setups are really decent, and I wouldn't say one is much better than the other. It just really depends on your preference and how do you like to play. So feel free to give them a try and have fun. thank you all for watching, and goodbye.